Welcome to another episode of Just 'Cause, the podcast where two cousins talk about things they love.
Just 'cause today we are talking about Loki. We're doing a Loki season 1 retrospective.
And a little bit on season 2 because the first episode's out and we might as well talk about it.
Why not?
So, when's the last time that you watched Loki season 1?
Okay, so I just rewatched it for this, obviously, but before this, the last time I watched it was when the finale was coming out. When the finale of the first season, I rewatched the whole season, and then I watched the final episode. And I have not watched it since then.
See, I watched it just week to week as it came out, and then I didn't watch it again. I loved it, but I just didn't feel like going back to it. And then it was about a month ago when I rewatched it, and it's incredible. It's so good.
It really is. Like, I think a few of my opinions have changed on it. And I wasn't expecting that to happen. But something that has stayed consistent is that this is the best Disney Plus Marvel show to have come out. I think I will always have a huge spot in my heart for WandaVision, and it is my personal favorite. But in terms of a coherent storyline, coherent themes and picture, like aesthetic, and just the way that the story is told, it is the best made and the best to watch. It's the best story to watch unfold, in my opinion.
I'm processing it right now because there's a lot of other shows like Disney Plus properties that I really loved, but Loki season 1 easily had the best finale.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't even all come down to the finale. The finale is amazing, but it is I'm going to say it a lot, but coherence. It's the coherence of the storytelling. It feels like it's not one of those that feels like one big long movie. Okay, like a few of the ones that I can't remember because honestly they're not that worth remembering. Probably
maybe
like
another show that we'll be talking about later by the name of Ahsoka.
Yeah, maybe. But there are these, shows that are part of these huge universes that come out and they feel like just really drawn out movies. Like, why did this need to be a show? It has too much going on. It didn't need all of this to tell its story. Loki doesn't feel like that. It has distinct episodes. You can tell, like, oh, this is the episode where this happened. This is the episode where this happened. They don't all blend together. But it also doesn't feel completely disjointed from each other. Not that a show like WandaVision does seem disjointed. It does all have a theme and it does follow a story that is an incredible story, but it is tonally inconsistent with its finale. But something like WandaVision has a consistent theme and message and story that it's trying to tell across different mediums. It likes to play with different types of television, and it's doing a meta commentary on the way that television has progressed and been made, especially sitcom television.
And that was amazing.
It was amazing, but it is tonally inconsistent with the overarching superhero story that ends in a big flying battle with them throwing sparks at each other. Like,
just oogly boogly lightning.
If it ended in a different way, it would, whatever. This is not talking about WandaVision, but as a reference point, Loki has distinct episodes, has streamlined storytelling, and coherent themes, and it is consistent, and that's what I really value about it.
As we're talking about this, should we go through it chronologically?
Absolutely.
I mean, the first episode, I think it's called Glorious Purpose.
Purpose. Yes.
Just introducing us to the TVA, which has this, you immediately understand what aesthetic they're going for once you see it, and it sticks by it.
Yeah. Well, I think the best part of the like opening episode is that it starts with Avengers Endgame. It starts from with a direct scene from Avengers Endgame, and you're like, I knew this was gonna come back into play, obviously.
It had to.
But it's so funny to just see this version of Loki, because in case anyone is not aware, this version of Loki that the TV show follows is not the version of Loki that we follow in the movies of the MCU. This is the Loki pulled out of time right after he was the big bad in the first Avengers movie in 2012.
He hasn't had any of the character development.
He has no character development. He doesn't value his family or his brother. He has not sacrificed himself to destroy Thanos. This is not our Loki. This is a different Loki who is very, very selfish still. Not that the other Loki wasn't selfish, but he learned to become less selfish.
I feel like they fast forward through a lot of the character development in the first episode, but it all works.
Like, yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. That was one of my, I wouldn't say complaints, because I was never mad at it, but the first time I watched it, that was definitely sitting in my head, and I was like, oh, they just zoomed through his character development by making him watch a pretty slideshow of his life. And yeah, so when I was watching it this time around, I still noticed, obviously, you can't not notice it. He's watching a slideshow of his life. Mobius. Okay, wait. Now that it's come up for the first time, Mobius, Owen Wilson, amazing character. I undoubtedly will accidentally call him Morbius multiple times. We just have to get over it.
I mean, the names shouldn't be so similar. I keep doing it.
They're so similar.
They shouldn't be.
So anyway, so he gets picked up by the TVA. He goes through this bureaucratic nightmare hellscape of being stripped of his humanity, as bureaucrats often do.
He's worried that he's a robot and he's just going to disintegrate.
Yeah.
I love that moment.
Because it's great, because it shows who Loki is, and Loki above anything else values self-preservation. Even if that being was a robot and he didn't know it, he doesn't care. He wants to live, and that makes him Loki, and I love that. And then he meets Owen Wilson. Mobius, not Morbius. And, Mobius is just a guy. He loves jet skis, and he is obsessed with Loki, like a lot of us are. Mm-hmm. Like anyone who went to Hot Topic in 2013.
I mean, he's just like your everyday detective, and he's just so fascinated with Loki. A, because he's trying to catch one, but also he likes poking at him.
Mm-hmm. He's an analyst at the TVA. He's a Loki analyst. And yes, it is revealed that he is trying to learn more from this version of Loki, because he is trying to capture a variant of Loki, who has been terrorizing the TVA for a long, long time.
And I still remember the mystery and the intrigue around who or what is this Loki. And I feel like a lot of people knew, because there were set photos leaked of a female Loki in this show. But still, I remember that reveal at the end of episode 2. And we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves as we're chronologically.
I don't think we are. I mean, I don't think we are. I think that's the next thing. Like the variant, it is kept in mystery for a while. They keep their hood up, and they're all mysterious and stuff. And people were theorizing. I do remember that people were theorizing, oh, it's going to be Lady Loki. But so Lady Loki from the comics is a very different character than this variant of Loki who calls herself Sylvie. Sylvie and Lady Loki are very different. Do you want to talk about that a little?
I feel like, Sylvie is very much a new character that they've brought on. Like, obviously,
she's like a combination. Yeah, she's like a combination of Lady Loki and the Enchantress, right?
A little bit. I've never even heard the comparison to Enchantress, but I do like that, Because obviously her whole thing is enchanting people.
Yeah. But is it like... It's not the DC Enchantress. I don't know what the Marvel Enchantress is.
No, there is a Marvel Enchantress, and it's just a Thor villain.
Yeah, okay, I think that was the... Because I'm remembering back to, like, a bunch of video essays I watched back when this was coming out, and I think that was the thing that people were like, oh, she's a combination of those two characters. But Lady Loki is not a variant of Loki who was born a woman in the comics. That's who Sylvie is. Sylvie was born as a woman. Or as a girl, I guess.
Whereas, from what I understand, like in the comics, Lady Loki, like in Norse mythology, is just Loki being gender fluid.
Yeah. So in the comics and in the source material, which is Norse mythology,
the source material.
Loki,
the sacred texts.
The sacred texts of the Norse people. Loki is gender fluid. Loki
not even gender. He turns into a wolf, a horse, a snake.
Yeah. They don't really give a shit about gender in Norse mythology, really, but especially Loki. And Loki turns into a horse because he finds this other horse really attractive, and to become impregnated by that horse. That's the reason that they turn into a horse, I'm pretty sure.
And he also does the same thing with a snake, and that's how you get the world serpent, because the world serpent's
I'm pretty
his
sure.
kid.
Yeah. So, yeah, the world serpent and Fenris.
Yep.
The wolf that causes Ragnarok in Norse mythology.
No, this is all real.
And there was one time when they impersonated a bride on her wedding day. I don't remember what the context was, but there is like lots of art of Loki walking down the aisle in a wedding dress.
Is it to Thor?
I don't think it's to Thor, but it's definitely something to do with Thor. Yeah, because also in Norse mythology, Loki and Thor are not brothers. Loki is a blood brother with Odin in Norse mythology.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know a lot about Norse mythology, but that's not what we're talking about.
But I do love how they play a little bit with Norse mythology in Loki, the show, because obviously you have to. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they obviously pulled more from the comics. Like, it's a very brief showing, but I think in episode 5 or something, you see President Loki, which I thought was going to be a much bigger part of it, I think, because it was in the trailer. But that was just fun to see. And Frog Thor.
Frog Thor with his one line, which was recorded by Chris Hemsworth. Excellent.
And there was a deleted scene that was supposed to be in it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that recently. I would have loved to see that. But still, his little part where he's trapped in a jar. Love
it's
that.
It's so funny. Anyway, okay, so we meet the variant that Mobius is after. Not Morbius. And it is Sylvie. She is... You know what really threw me off? I never really noticed this the first time around, but this time I was looking at it a lot. And I was like, her face shape and Tom Hiddleston's face shape are very similar. They did really good casting. Like, their faces, if someone told me that they were brother and sister, I would believe them.
I never even thought about it until I was watching the season 2 premiere last night, and I was just like, those guys, they look so similar. They look
really similar. Yeah. And obviously they look similar because they're the same person. But, you know, we'll get into that in a second. Hold on. So there is... Sylvie's plan is to bomb the TVA. That goes off pretty well. She does that. She's a queen. No, she's a goddess. And then some shenanigans happen, and she and Loki get stranded on a planet called Lamentus. The way that Mobius... I almost said Morbius. The way that Mobius and Loki find Sylvie in the first place is by realizing that she is hiding out in apocalypses, because if the world is going to end, the TVA cannot detect any changes to the timeline because it doesn't affect anything, because they're going to explode anyway. Like, the world's going to end. Nothing matters.
And they have a great visual of that, and they ruin Mobius's salad.
Yeah, they test it in a really funny way. That was the theory, destroying Mobius' salad, and they test it in a really funny way by going to Pompeii and just wreaking havoc. And so anyway, so Loki and Sylvie get trapped in an apocalypse on a planet called Lamentis. And they have to figure out a way to get off the planet. Their plan does not work. They get very sad. This series is a lot about getting into the mindset of Loki, who is a self-proclaimed narcissist, which is really interesting because Loki is a narcissist who hates himself, and he says this one thing to Mobius in the first episode, and he says, it's an illusion conjured by the weak to inspire fear. Something, he says that, something about the TVA, and then later he reveals that that's actually about himself. And that
perfectly sums up Loki's character.
It really does. Like, the illusion, he doesn't enjoy hurting people. His persona of the bad guy is an illusion conjured by the weak to inspire fear. And I was like, I love that line. It's very good. And so when you have two Lokis together, who are at their core the same person, but were raised under very different circumstances, it becomes very interesting to see how that narcissism takes hold in different ways, I think.
Because they're so similar and so different in so many ways. And I do love exploring that. And I feel like the most we got of that was on Lamentis. Though the one note I have about this episode is, wow, what a one take at the end of it, where it's like, I don't even know how long it is.
It's not exactly a one take. I was able to identify a few hidden, stitches, but the way that they do it is really excellent. And spoilers, they do it again a little bit in the first episode of season 2. It's like a little tease, and I'm like, yeah. I love I just love good filmmaking.
And that's one thing we haven't really talked about yet. I feel like Loki is a step above filmmaking wise, and obviously WandaVision had a lot of spoof filmmaking, but Loki's just like premiere television. It really feels like that.
It really does. It doesn't. A lot of these other Disney Plus shows feel like they're half-assed. Feel like they are first of all, it feels like people are underpaying and rushing the visual effects teams, which they absolutely are.
Yeah, that's the truth of it. But what we see at the end of the day is just a half-assed show.
Yeah, it feels unfinished. It feels rushed. It feels like a corporate machine-made product. It doesn't feel like art. Loki feels like an artful show that people have passion for and want to put their own twists and aesthetics on. And it doesn't feel like it is just here to expand the universe. It feels like it has a story to tell.
And I mean, we're generalizing because like Moon Knight had some great Batman style shots and Miss Marvel had some snappy editing. But overall, Loki is really just a step above.
It really is. I said the thing that I am going to keep saying, it's consistent. And that is the difference. I think that is the big difference. Every episode is
so watchable and you are so intrigued and in the story.
Yeah, because so when you search for Loki on the internet, it shows you people also search for WandaVision, Moon Knight, Secret Invasion, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Those are the 4 that popped up, right? And just out of those 4, none of them are consistent in their filmmaking, in their thematic visual styles, in their storytelling methods, not in a lot of things. And it, for me, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it all blends together. I could not pick out an episode of that to save my life.
Which is why it should have been a movie. but we've talked about that.
Anyway, yes. So, Loki and Sylvie are on Lamentus. They're sad. They're talking about their lives and how depressed they are and how Lokis are always destined to fail and destined to be alone. And then all of a sudden at the TVA, they start detecting a Nexus event, something causing a branching timeline. And it is caused by the Lokis. And it is revealed is because they started to have feelings for each other and were maybe about to kiss a little, that the TVA stepped in and said, "No, sir, no kissing on my watch."
That's some level of narcissism.
Yes. Oh, it's an incredible level of narcissism. Yeah, Mobius comes in and is like, falling for yourself? Damn.
I will say the only negative I have about this show, and one thing I'm a little worried about for season 2, is I never really felt a chemistry between Loki and Sylvie. Like, I fully believe that they are friends and that they are going to help each other's goals, but every time that they kissed or got close, I never really felt that emotion. I don't know. Maybe you did. I just didn't.
I did. I bought their romance. Their romance wasn't what I had a problem with. My original, when I first watched this, my original problem with the show was using Sylvie as the villain character and having, I didn't even know how to articulate it correctly because I don't think this anymore.
I mean, in some ways, she's kind of just a stepping stone to Kang / He Who Remains.
Right. Well, I don't think she's a stepping stone. She begins as Loki and Mobius's antagonist, but then very quickly the tables turn and she and Loki become the driving force, the protagonists, with Mobius also protagonist, but in the B plot.
Yeah. He's a side character.
Yeah. And because it feels like the focus, as soon as she's fully introduced, it feels like the focus shifts and being like, well, this show is called Loki. She is Loki. This show is about her. Yeah. And I like that a lot.
And I think we both texted each other the night of the episode airing where Loki gets pruned. And for like 5 minutes before that after credit scene of that episode, you're like, maybe the Loki, the protagonist, is now Sylvie. Like, Loki's gone.
Maybe Sylvie is now going to take the rest of the show. She is Loki. That would work. Yeah. And I do remember texting you that. That's funny. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So back then, like, what was it? 2 years ago now?
I think
whenever this first came out, 2 or 3 years ago.
Time flies.
I thought that taking Loki out of the context of the Battle of Manhattan and then immediately making him the hero and having his antagonist be a female version of himself, I thought that was sexist. I thought that I did not enjoy it at first, and I thought, oh, they just want to have Loki as the villain, but they would need Loki to be the protagonist. So, let's make a female version of him who's crazy and who wants to destroy the TVA. That's how it felt at first. Like, that's how I felt when the show was airing, week by week. But once it had all come out and was a cohesive show, I didn't feel that way anymore immediately because I understood Sylvie's arc and Sylvie's story. And, jumping a bit ahead, the season ends with Sylvie making a huge decision that changes everything. Yeah. And I thought that having her make that, there were a lot of people who thought having her make that decision was bad, showed that she was stupid, showed that they needed a patsy Loki to make the wrong choice so that Tom Hiddleston Loki could come in and save the day and make the right choice. I don't think that at all. I thought that it was purely within her character to make that choice and completely necessary by the story because what else was going to happen?
Yeah, and she went to that place for that purpose. But yeah,
Exactly.
we'll get to it. But I feel like I want to talk about episode 4 just in that it felt like a culmination of a lot of story arcs in that show, which left episode 5 and 6 to be like picking up the pieces, which I mean in the best ways, because we saw the timekeepers and they're revealed to be just Wizard of Oz man behind a curtain, which I had a feeling was the case, but seeing that happen still had my jaw dropped.
Exactly. They're not real Loki, Sylvie, Mobius, and Hunter B-15, who is also now on the team of,
totally
against
her
the
name.
TVA.
I can't believe
her name is
that.
I'm reading it. That's the only reason. I'm reading it off the internet. That's the only reason I remember.
I think I was just calling her Hunter in my head.
Her name is a letter. There's no and a number. There's no way I would have remembered that if I wasn't reading it. Anyway, they all go against Judge Ramona. That's it. I remember that one. Judge Ramona.
I was gonna say Renslayer. I'm pretty sure is her last name.
Her name is Ramona Renslayer. That's right. I remember it because Ramona Flowers, even though she has nothing to do with Ramona Flowers. But I'm like, oh, Ramona, got it. So they go against Ramona Renslayer, Judge, and fight. And it's revealed that the TVA has been, everybody at the TVA has been lied to. They're all variants who have been taken out of time and their memories have been wiped. And then at the end, so also in that episode, Mobius gets
pruned.
Thank you. I was gonna say probed, and I was like, that's not right. Pruned, which means
so
he
much
gets
worse if Mobius got probed.
Yeah. Up until this moment, pruned was the language to mean destroyed, disintegrated, removed from the timeline. And then also in this episode, Loki, Tom Hiddleston, gets pruned.
Which I mean, immediately I thought was weird because just in physics, you can never destroy matter. It still exists. But I really, really liked the explanation of it's just teleporting them somewhere. And I feel like that's where we're leading to episode, I think, was it 5?
Yes. Journey into Mystery.
Yes. And I did love this episode. We talked about Frog Thor, and I think they have the Thanos copter in this episode too.
I think so, yeah. And they also have the Pizza Planet truck, which is wild.
So many Easter eggs. There's the Living Tribunal. It's amazing. Yeah. Every little thing that they could have, they probably put in.
Yep. There's every possible version of Loki you could think of. There's Kid Loki, there's Classic Loki, there is Crocodile Loki, there's Lokis that betray each other left and right, and then they all have the audacity to say to listen to Tom Hiddleston say, "I met a woman version of us," and all go, "Ew, disgusting."
Yeah. We know they're all interested.
I'm like, how dare you? You are all supposed to be gender fluid. How dare you be like, ew, disgusting, terrifying, a woman? What? Crazy.
Yeah, I think a brawl goes out. The original Loki, I hope I'm getting his name right, Richard E. Grant. Just so fun to see. And he's mastered illusions, and he's really, really good at it. But the whole episode is leading up to them trying to enchant Elias, the cloud dog, I think is his name.
Yes, them being Sylvie and Loki are trying to get past this big timeline-eating monster, Elias.
Because everything's sent there to Elias so that he can just eat it all.
And they think that whoever they're looking for, whoever made the TVA, is behind Elias, if they can get past it. And yeah, they enchant it. Sylvie teaches Loki how to enchant things, which he did not know how to do, which is strange that he didn't know how to do that, because that's basically what he was doing to Clint through all of the Avengers.
Though he did have the help of one of the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, he did it through the Mind Stone. I got it. But I was like, if you have the power in yourself to do that and you're seeing a stone do it, wouldn't you like figure out how to do it?
You would at least
I
try,
feel like
right?
it. Yeah.
I would try. I don't know.
Yeah.
I though I feel like controlling people is definitely a villain power. But
Yeah. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
yeah, you gotta take the superpowers you can get.
The thing is like, back to what I was saying about Sylvie before, how I felt about her when I first saw this show and how a lot of people felt about her. It wasn't just me. It was the first few episodes framed her as a villain, as the villain of this show is going to be Sylvie, right? And once you get past that and you realize, oh, she's not a villain. The villain here, I mean, Loki is a villain. All of the things that he's not a villain in this show, but Loki is a villainous person.
He's just a bad guy.
Yeah, all of the stuff that he's done. He's a villain. But Sylvie never did any of that kind of stuff. The only thing she ever did was defend herself and try to destroy the organization that's been hunting her entire life.
I mean, we kind of get the summation of her character, but what really hit it home for me is the start of one of the episodes later on where it shows Sylvie as a kid and she's just playing with some toys and then she just gets picked up by TVA agents and her home is just disintegrated.
And it's awful. Like, they show her going through all of the same things that that Loki went through, all of the dehumanizing bureaucracy and the robot machine and all of that stuff. And
but as a kid.
But the difference is she is like 10 years old.
Yeah, oh my god.
Like, actually 10 years old, even though Loki, our Loki, Tom Hiddleston, he's not like 40 like Tom Hiddleston is or however old he is. He is like 400. Like, they're really old.
Or maybe even like thousands. Gods. I don't know.
Yeah, they're maybe really
they're
1,500.
Old people. I think that's the number that I remember from some comic.
Yeah, maybe. But she's like actually 10.
Yeah.
Actually 10 years old.
Terrible.
And that's fucked. Yeah.
But everything is leading up to them getting in this house at the end of time. And we kind of see it in the episode before. But the finale, we go inside. And the first thing we see, other than some statues and cool architecture,
Minutes.
And she's like, "Hello."
Terror. She's terrifying. And you've always been suspicious of her. I remember, like, when the trailers were first coming out, you were like, "I don't trust that clock woman."
And the marketing was pushing that too. I loved that.
It's great. And no, she's terrifying. She's so startling to be in this like super dark, decaying castle and then just have this bright cartoon clock talking at you in a southern accent. Like, stop.
And she's just like, "Oh, y'all were meant to be here."
Yeah.
It's creepy as hell. And I think before we see He Who Remains, Miss Minutes offers them like the Infinity Stone, a throne for themselves. Yeah. Something like that. Oh,
she offers Loki all the Infinity Stones and a throne, and she offers Sylvie a normal life, which is historically what they've all both wanted. Which, that tells you right there which one of these is the villain. Which one wants a throne and all of the power, and which one just wants to live a goddamn life.
That they were robbed of.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess we can talk about it now. There's a lot of ick surrounding Jonathan Majors because we don't know who the guilty party of the whole thing. I don't really want to get into it, but we just have to kind of say it because it exists. It's there.
Yes. It's not great.
Yeah, it's not great at all. And I hate saying it because, my God, he nails it. He's so good. No,
he's so good in it. And I
mean, he's in season 2.
Yeah. Oh, unavoidably. His face is plastered all over it. Is he still arrested? He got arrested, right? But did he get released? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he's released. I don't know a lot of the specifics, but yeah, it's still up in the air. Like, the court never found a verdict yet. So
Yeah, I think they are on trial or going to trial, something like that. But we do not support Jonathan Majors at this time when we don't know
no.
who's guilty of what. We don't just because we enjoy this show and his
Yeah.
acting does not mean that we support him as a person or anything that he has done or allegedly done.
Yeah. We can't say too much because, yeah, it's still up in the air. But
Yeah.
this being Loki and him being a star of it, it had to come up, sadly. But moving on from that, we can just talk about He Who Remains as the character, because this man at the end of time with all of the answers is so interesting.
I feel like it was a very hard line to toe, because in any other show, introducing this one crazy guy at the end of time in the last episode of your show would be anticlimactic and a little bad. But this character is so perfect for this situation.
Right.
Everything to do with how He Who Remains acts and behaves and just sees the universe is incredibly interesting.
And I mean, I feel like the moment that I saw him, my first thought was, oh my God, that's Kang. We're doing this. Marvel is finally doing this. I can't wait to see all of this. But if you put it all in a vacuum, it doesn't matter. It's still so climactic, and you get to see this, what this show has been leading up to this whole time, which is just someone with all of the answers, and they're laying it out on the table. Just like, yeah, this whole adventure you went on, I wrote out exactly what you were going to do. I know every step. And I just loved seeing all of that.
Yeah. There were a lot of complaints when the show first came out that, oh, it's no fun to just have a bunch of exposition in the last episode with, a slideshow, basically. And I'm like, just because it was done with visual exposition that was done with visual aid doesn't mean it's a slideshow, and doesn't mean that it's bad. This was done very well, because it was all in service of the characters of Loki and Sylvie and the decision that they had to make at the end of this episode, which was to kill He Who Remains, and have the multiverse exist, and have
Splits and cracks open.
Yes, and have infinite number of Kangs come to conquer the universe, or for themselves to take over the TVA and tell everybody what has been going on, but to keep pruning the timeline.
Right.
And that was a tough decision. And one Loki wants one thing and one Loki wants the other.
I think it's even clarified in the season 2 premiere. Loki didn't even know, Tom Hiddleston Loki didn't even know what he wanted in that moment. He was just like,
Yeah.
I just want time to think. Can I just think about this?
He was absolutely saying just that. He didn't know what to do. And I fully believed him that he didn't want the throne. He didn't because I believe their relationship and I believe their chemistry, that what he just wanted was for Sylvie to be okay, which is what he said.
And even my reading of it was maybe a part of him wanted the throne, but more of him wanted Sylvie to be okay. So obviously he was prioritizing that.
But the way that he was looking at it is that he believed He Who Remains. Loki believed what he was saying and thought, okay, so doing the right thing and me getting the throne is not mutually exclusive. This is the best case scenario for me, Loki. And, maybe he was right. Who knows?
And And it really smacks you in the face. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but right before they like cut to black for the end of the season, Loki's talking to a new Mobius and he's saying like an infinite number of the most dangerous man is coming after us. We need to prepare. And you're like, "Oh my god, this is happening. This is real."
Well, because Sylvie does end up killing He Who Remains and releasing the timeline, releasing the universe, creating the multiverse.
And I remember that distinct shot where she stabs him, and I remember being disappointed by it because we don't even see the blade go in or the blade at all. But on rewatch, I love how disappointing that is because it's disappointing for Sylvie. Yeah. As soon as she stabs him and it's over.
Yeah. It's supposed to be, it's cathartic for a second. And then you're like, did I make the wrong decision?
Oh, shit.
And it's not about like Kang dying or He Who Remains dying. It's about Sylvie's decision. And I really liked that. Mm-hmm. And that leads us all the way up to last night, which was the season 2 premiere of Loki.
And it picks up right off where we left.
Now, before we get into talking about the episode, what did you think of it?
I loved it. As soon as we got into the episode, within minutes, I was right back into it as if we had never left this show. And I loved that feeling. The cinematography, and I feel like it's a step up, and the production value. Everything looks so specific to the aesthetic that they've chose, and it just works. Mm-hmm. But what did you think about it?
I also loved it. I thought that it was very tonally in sync with the rest of Loki. And this is, it obviously other things can happen with the rest of the season, but this is always a fear of, you have one season that succeeds. The second season, they're going to be like, oh, this was so successful. Let's change up everything about it, or let's keep it exactly the same because that's what the success was. And I don't think it's doing either of that. It is very much staying in the aesthetic and the tone of the first season. It's very funny, but it's also weird and scary and mysterious. But they're introducing new things already in the first episode. They're introducing new concepts of time slipping, introducing new characters, Ke Huy Quan, introducing
so glad they got him. Oh my goodness.
He's absolutely hilarious. He came in and he entered. I saw him in the trailers, obviously, but the first thing I thought when he came on screen was, I was like, he's basically Data. He's basically just Data.
He is. But he's innocent and fun, and he always ends up playing an innocent style character, but he does it so well. Oh, I love seeing him. And I hope he's in the title sequence or the credit sequence. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be in every episode.
Oh yeah.
Can't wait to see him.
I think he's gonna be a mainstay of this season, if not more. And we do see other characters like Hunter B-15 in this episode, and Judge Ramona Renslayer is mentioned, but we don't see her.
And we see a whole bunch of like officials of the TVA.
Yeah, a bunch of new TVA people. I have no idea what the actress's name is, but she was just in the new season of Good Omens, and she was hilarious in that. And she's in the TVA now, and I don't remember her name, but she's there.
But they got a whole bunch of great people. One of which has a weird relationship with one of the hunters. I don't know if it's a mom and son or if they're lovers.
I don't know. I hope it's not both.
But it's the lady from the Vavitch.
The what?
Have you seen the Vavitch?
Oh, no. I thought you said the bitch. I was like, what? No, what's the Vavitch?
Oh, I think it's just called The Witch, but it's sometimes it's spelled VV. But it's I think it's an Ari Aster one.
Oh, yeah. I've seen the logo for that movie. I think I know which one you're talking about. But no, I haven't seen that though.
She's a great actress. Can't wait to see her in the rest of the show, despite her relationship with the hunter being very weird.
I already don't like that Hunter.
Yeah.
In my head, you called him Hunter, and that's the only reason I'm calling him that. In my head, I had classified him as annoying white guy. So
That's fair. That
yeah.
works. They immediately introduce him, and he's like, "Hey, you guys got to come downstairs." And I'm like, "Wow, you're introducing an asshole, aren't you?"
No, like
Just
his
right out
first
of the
line
gate.
was his first line was like, Mobius, what are you yearning for this jet ski or something? And I was like, shut up, man. Way to make a bad first impression.
As a
Jesus
matter of
Christ.
fact, I am yearning about that jet ski.
Yeah. So Loki is he comes from He Who Remains. Sylvie pushed him through a time door, whatever, right? And he tries looking for Mobius to warn him. This happens at the end of season 1, but to warn him about Kang coming, and Mobius doesn't recognize him. So in this episode, we realize that he is not in a different alternate universe of the TVA. He is in the past of the TVA. He is time slipping.
This is something that I assumed mainly from the trailer and even the end of the first season was I thought that he was in a different universe, and I thought that him kind of time slipping was just a live action way of showing the glitching from Spider-Verse.
Oh,
I just
interesting.
straight up assumed that, but I love how it's moving through time. And we learn that he's moving back and forth from the past and the future.
Yes. I was not expecting that. I was expecting him to be in a different universe, and then he comes to the universe where Casey recognizes him, and he sees the logo on the floor with the crack that he caused from crashing and letting a woman die, by the way. And I was like,
No,
same old Loki.
she zoomed off.
He was like,
she's
fine.
alive.
No, she didn't. She crashed.
I'm fairly certain that flying truck went back up in the air.
There was a crash. Didn't you hear the crash sound effect?
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Dude.
We'll have to rewatch
crashed,
it.
It crashed, and then he went, she'll be fine.
Oh, no. Well, I mean,
Same
that's
old-
Loki.
Same old Loki. You know? That's what you gotta love him. But anyway, yeah, so he killed some woman and caused a crash in the TVA, and then in the different time that he's in, which we learn is the future, Casey's like, oh, that's been here for as long as I can remember. And Loki comes to the conclusion, not only is this the past, but Mobius and Casey and Hunter B-15 don't remember any of this, so their minds were erased
At some point.
at another time.
This introduces a lot of stuff that's going to be answered throughout the season, but I just kind of want to ask the questions to put it out there. Like, if he's moving through time, is someone doing it to him, or is it just because he's actually broken physically in time? I can't wait to find that out. Or
I don't know. Yeah.
Like, a more specific question that we could talk about is him going to the past. Is that actively changing the future as it's written? Or was it the kind of time travel that was always meant to be? Like, it always happened.
Yeah. Well, okay, so here's what I'm thinking. I don't know why it's happening exactly, but I don't think someone's doing it to him. My theory originally was it's happening because when he went through the time door, it was at the time when the universes were in flux and when everything was changing. So he got stuck somehow.
That definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, being ripped through time, and it looks very painful, and Mobius does not spare him from that. It was so funny. He was like, I can't keep looking at it. It's terrible. I just love Owen Wilson's comedy style. He's so funny.
And then they pan to the other person in the elevator, and they're like, yeah, it's pretty bad.
Especially because that bit was in the trailer without the other person in the elevator.
Yes.
And then just like watching that, you're like, oh, I think I know what's going to happen. And then they're like, there's another person in this room the whole time. And you're like, oh, God damn it.
We talked about it very recently, but it felt like Shaun of the Dead at the beginning of it when they're at the bar.
Yeah.
And they just cut to the new people. But
Yeah.
the comedy in this, we haven't really talked about that either. But
so funny.
Loki is very, very funny. And I feel like a lot of that comes from just Owen Wilson being Owen Wilson.
But Tom Hiddleston is also really funny. Like, he showed that in Thor Ragnarok. And even though this version of Loki has never experienced the events of Thor Ragnarok, I think it's definitely taking that version of Loki slightly more. Not version, but that potential that Loki has for comedy.
Yeah, this new protagonist.
Yeah, and it makes a very interesting and fun show to watch.
Yes. But I felt like a lot of this episode, and this feeling was replaced with intrigue about the new season. But for the first, 10 or so minutes, I felt this was like an episode 10 to a Game of Thrones, where we were wrapping up a lot of the stuff that we saw and just tying up all of the loose ends. And that feeling was dropped immediately. First, once we saw the new council of the TVA and new heads, but also when Loki went into the future and saw Sylvie and the phone ringing, I was like, oh, this is set up. We're gonna see this later on in the season in different context.
Definitely. I also think the past is set up too. I think this was my thinking, that the reason that all of the TVA agents are going to get their memories wiped, and the reason that all of these statues of Kang get covered up or replaced with the myth of the timekeepers is definitely going to have something to do with Loki, with the Lokis.
Yeah.
You know,
we're definitely going to get a timeline of the whole TVA. We're going to see it all.
I don't know. I'm really excited. Seems very interesting. I don't like Sylvie's new haircut. I'm just going to say that right now. I hate it, but it's supposed to be from the 80s, and I respect that, even though
she's trying to fit in.
Yeah.
I do have some speculation.
Yes, I was just going to ask. Okay.
So, I mean, first off, who was on the phone? Not necessarily as important as who pruned Loki.
Loki did. I think it was Loki.
I have two answers. Yeah. I think it was Renslayer, because we haven't seen her yet. She could be in it, but it is definitely Loki, and he's gonna do it to himself in another episode later.
I don't think it's Renslayer. I think that when Sylvie says, "Oh, there you are," she says it to the Loki she's looking at, but she also is waiting for Loki, obviously. So I think whoever did it obviously saved him. Like, we know that they saved him. I don't think they would have thought, I'm killing him right now. I don't know.
And it would be like fulfilling a prophecy if it was himself.
Yeah, I'm convinced that it's him. That was my first thought as soon as I saw it happen. I was like, oh, it's him. He did it to himself. Awesome.
It's like, are we gonna see? No, we're ending the episode. But I think first we see a bunch of ground forces going after Sylvie. But yeah, that is the big ending of the episode.
Yes. And I don't know if the show is setting it up to be as much content for speculation as this is what the story is and it's going to unfold. I don't think it's necessarily fishing for a mystery, but
it's more intrigue about skipping between the past and the present and the future. Yeah. And this whole narrative is going to exist bouncing between those. And I can't wait to see all of that.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting times, very exciting show. We love Loki.
But with that, let us move on to the consumption corner, where we're just starved for content. So I got a couple things that I completely forgot to mention in the past couple weeks, but I feel like it might as well mention them. I finished the final season of Sex Education. Fantastic.
Oh, incredible. I can't believe I didn't mention it. I rewatched the entire thing in preparation for the 4th season. So good. Everyone should watch Sex Education. Yeah. Every single person should watch Sex Education, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
There's only one bad thing about this show, and that's that the show didn't end with Otis and Ruby together. I gotta get that out there.
Oh, you're an Otis and Ruby
I very
shipper.
much am.
Really?
I stan them.
Even after the way he treated her in season 4?
Otis has always been an asshole.
Yeah, Otis is an asshole. Ruby deserves better.
Maybe. Honestly, yeah, she does.
I mean,
better,
well, kind of.
But...
She's kind of also an asshole, but
but yeah, other than that, this show is fantastic.
Yeah. But I'm not even an Otis hater. I'm sorry. You got me started. I'm not an Otis hater, but
I probably am. Honestly, I'm a little bit.
Actually, I think I am too, honestly. Yeah. I don't want people to come for me. I'm not an Asa Butterfield hater, but Otis is the definition of a teenage boy, and I historically do not like teenage boys.
He's just very, very much a teenage boy. Yeah, that's the best way to sum it up. But something else that was fantastic that I forgot to mention is last week I watched the movie Bottoms, and oh my god, Sasha.
You're just mentioning all my favorite things, aren't you? Bottoms. Yep. No. The movie.
The movie reminded me so much of, if you've seen the show Atlanta with Donald Glover.
No, I haven't. Yes.
Whoever Childish Gambino is.
Yes.
But it just like the surreal, I can't even explain it. It feels like this world that we're in Atlanta or in Bottoms, it's this hyper real existence where everything makes sense and everything is explained and it comes from some sort of reality. But then every once in a while we just completely break that, and it is hilarious, and I love seeing it.
Well, first of all, I don't know why you doubt yourself. That man is Donald Glover.
Is he? Oh.
Yes.
I was thinking of the guy from Lethal Weapon. He's also something Glover.
Oh, okay. I don't
know.
There's a
Danny and a Donald.
I've never seen Lethal Weapon, but I definitely know who Donald Glover is, and he's Childish Gambino, and he's Troy from Community. I know who he is.
Yeah. But the older one, sorry, Danny, he's the one who says, "I'm too old for this shit."
Oh, really? Okay. Makes sense. I haven't seen Atlanta, but it's been on my list for a while, and I need to.
It's great.
But Bottoms is such a good movie. It is diving into a market that is, very rarely seen in movies that actually make it to the theaters. It is a raunchy high school comedy,
self-deprecating.
It seems out from the 90s, except it's queer focused, and it the characters are terrible. They're all terrible people. It's excellent. It feels like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's Always Sunny and Superbad. Although as I started to go, I was like, oh, Superbad is mixed with Fight Club, I guess. But
yeah, kind of. Honestly, they make a Fight Club. They reference the movie Fight Club many times.
many times.
What a great film. But so good.
What have you been consuming?
I have we're going to talk about something in a minute that we've both been consuming, but I have been watching I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show before. I probably have, but I've been watching a lot of Dimension 20. It's so good.
At first I was like, what's oh, right. Yeah.
Dropouts, Dimension 20, the Dungeons and Dragons show. With all of the former college humor people.
I think we've talked about it just in person, where I've told you that I just watch the highlights, but sometimes I go in.
You gotta watch the shows, man. Hank Green was on the last campaign. Oh. Hank Green played on it. It was great. He was so funny. He was spitting out facts left and right. I loved it. It was excellent.
I hope that was tied to his ability, like as
it
a
absolutely was tied to his character.
Yes.
Don't doubt Hank Green, my friend. I was rewatching one of their old campaigns called Starstruck Odyssey, and it really made me want to read the graphic novel that it's based off of, Starstruck. That is one that I think that you will like. It is my recommendation to you for graphic novels, which never happens. So read that one. I think you'll like it.
Heck yeah.
And I have also right before we started recording this, I started watching the movie from 2014 called The Other Woman, starring Leslie Mann and I think Cameron Diaz. I don't know, but I don't know her name, but Leslie Mann definitely. Because TikTok had been showing me tons and tons of clips of this movie for a long time, and I was like, fine, I'll watch it. It's really funny. Leslie Mann is so funny. Like, it's not... I was
gonna say, I haven't even heard of it.
No, it's not like a good movie.
Oh.
It's just like a comedy. It's just like, you know, back when people made comedies that weren't just bad movies on Netflix. There were comedies that came out and people were like, oh, let's go to the movies. Let's see a comedy, you know? Back when,
and
before
comedies
everything
nowadays, like, good comedies are rare, but they do exist. But back
like
then
Bottoms.
It was just once a year.
Yeah. But, you know, now everything in the theaters, all the movies that come out are just like, you know, part of big IPs, part of extended universes, and something that they can definitely make box office returns off. And I'm like, sometimes you just want to go see something stupid.
I mean, I'm pointing my finger at something and villainizing it, though I did watch it and have fun. But all of the blockbusters nowadays feel like The Meg 2. It's a sequel to something you didn't care about, but you're like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I am still deep in my Percy Jackson reread.
Nice.
Onto Sea of Monsters now. Percy Jackson's just great, and it didn't take me this long. I want to make it clear, it didn't take me this long to just read The Lightning Thief and then move on to Sea of Monsters. No, I read The Lightning Thief and then I read Chalice of the Gods, the new one, and then I'm reading Sea of Monsters.
See, I haven't even finished Chalice of the Gods because, and we'll probably talk about this in a episode of its own, but you got me started reading this professionally made fanfic called All the Young Dudes.
You're actually reading it? Oh my
I'm
god.
loving it, Sasha.
Oh my god. I'm so happy. Oh my god. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. Oh my god. This is crazy. Oh. Okay. For anyone who doesn't know, we will be talking about this so much. But it's great. My favorite book of all time is a fan fiction called All the Young Dudes. And I'm not going to tell you what it's about. I'm not going to say anything, but just I'm so glad that you took my advice, because it is a novel. Like, it's a crime that this cannot be published as a book and more people cannot read it, because it is so profound and it is extremely well written. Like,
and it's got ideas and themes and characters, and it's great.
It's better than any book that I've ever read.
I feel like spoiling it just slightly so that I can get more people to read it, but all I'll say is Marauders fanfic. If you get that, then get into it.
It's a Marauders fanfic, and guys, everybody, Max doesn't even know that the Marauders are a whole fandom onto themselves. I will be introducing him to that. It's going to be a wild ride. Yeah.
So, I guess I was going to talk about the video games Spider-Man PS4 and Miles Morales, which I've been playing, getting ready for Spider-Man 2. But I feel like we should get into our opinions on Ahsoka.
Yes, the Ahsoka finale aired last night. And I will say this. This is how my day went today, this morning. Okay, I wasn't able to watch any of the episodes last night. So this morning, I watched the new episode of Loki. Then I watched the last 2 episodes of Ahsoka, because I didn't realize that I had skipped one. And then I watched the 3 new episodes of Our Flag Means Death, which also premiered last night.
Oh my goodness. I need to get to that.
Absolutely incredible. And let me just tell you, sandwiching the 2 episodes of Ahsoka in between Loki and Our Flag Means Death really shone a light for me on how...
Probably did a disservice to Ahsoka.
Yeah, not boring, but dull, maybe.
Yeah, I feel
How
like
dull
my
Ahsoka
biggest
was.
note coming out of Ahsoka, and I really did enjoy it. I love a lot of Dave
Yes.
Filoni's work, was a lot of the lightsabers, and mainly it's when they're blocking blaster fire. It felt
Mm-hmm.
slow until it
Yeah.
wasn't. For rare occasions, there was some duels in the fourth episode, and Ahsoka and Morgan Elspeth's battle in the final episode I
Mm-hmm.
loved. But other than that, I didn't love the choreography.
No, a lot of it felt slow. But I think that that is something that just happens when you're used to seeing characters CGI'd and you all of a sudden see them in live action.
That's fair.
Um, I think that that is, it's unfortunate, but also, these actors are older than, Hayden Christensen was when he did all those really, really fast lightsaber motions that looked
Yeah.
really stupid. So, um, I
Yeah.
think that wasn't what bothered me about it. What bothered me, and not that it bothered me, I liked the show. I enjoyed it.
Mm.
I like the story of Ahsoka. I like the characters. I like Sabine. I like Ezra. Obviously, I like Balin and whatever his apprentice name is, Shin or something. I don't know.
I think Shin. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just felt so, I don't know, anticlimactic.
Yeah.
It was.
Because I was expecting it to come to a point, and either they're setting up season 2, which I would love to see. It's not confirmed yet, but I did a little bit of research, and we talked a few episodes with the Ahsoka premiere about a movie that might be coming out that Dave Filoni is making, where it has the Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and it has all those characters, and it turns out that is actually happening.
That's interesting.
Which part of me is very excited to see that. Obviously, I'm going to go to the theaters and have a whole lot of fun seeing all the Dave Filoni characters coming together and Dave Filoni doing his thing. But I also want to see Ahsoka's story wrapped up in her own show.
Yeah.
And I would forgive it if season 2 brings out a lot of this stuff, and obviously they'll have to recast Balin's skull. Love Ray Stevenson, but if they want that character to still exist, and I feel like if they left it open-ended, it would be too open-ended for my case. But like, if season 2 does all that stuff and it continues the storyline, I would be forgiving. But right now, I definitely don't like how they ended it.
The thing is like, it's not a problem for me with the villains winning. I actually like that. I was like, I think it's cool that Thrawn won
Oh yeah, I love that.
You haven't really seen like a Star Wars movie where the villains won since The Empire Strikes Back. Like, I mean, sure, in Attack of the Clones it was different, and but it wasn't as clear cut as this was, right?
No.
And as Empire was. Not that this is the same as Empire, but having your villains prevail doesn't mean that your story needs to be anticlimactic, because Empire wasn't, and lots of movies where the villains win are not.
Infinity War.
Yeah,
Love
Infinity War was absolutely the last thing from anticlimactic. But this felt anticlimactic.
Honestly, I think a lot of the anticlimax came from the conflict between all of the protagonists that we had, because I was waiting for that to come to a head and for them to start clashing against each other in the 6th or 7th episode. And I think it's the point where Ezra he's just like, something bad probably happened, but I forgive you, Sabine. It's just like, no, I want to see you guys shout at each other.
I think that this felt less like a story and more like just a bunch of things that were happening. It felt
and they were interesting and intriguing, but they were just things.
It didn't feel like a story. It felt like, oh, we have to get this person here. We have to introduce the Star Wars in live action. We have to get Ahsoka to talk to Ghost of Anakin. We have to get Sabine to choose the dark side. We have to do all of these things, but it didn't make a coherence. Oh, we have to introduce witchcraft, which I'm so sorry. But when they cast that spell and the stormtroopers got up as zombie stormtroopers, I was like, no. I was like, please don't do this. This is not what we want. Nobody wants zombie stormtroopers.
I loved the idea of it, and I am one of those people that wanted zombie stormtroopers. But
really?
like I said, the slow lightsaber movement, and it felt like that moment just didn't work for me. When the stormtroopers got back up and they started clambering after them, I was like, yeah, this doesn't feel intense in any way. Like, I love the idea of zombie stormtroopers, and I'm pretty sure Thrawn just has a bunch of corpses in that cargo, and he's going to use that to further the plot in season 2. He's going to turn all of them into corpse zombies. But
the thing is, okay, if you're going to this is the problem with working with a timeline that's already set, right? If you're going to introduce Thrawn bringing a bunch of zombie stormtroopers to bring back the Empire through, like, freaking 4 years after the Battle of Endor, first of all, we know that nothing is going to happen with that because nothing happens
the
until
First Order is what
30
rises.
years later. Yeah. But also, why does nobody talk about 30 years later? Hey, you guys remember when there was a bunch of fucking zombies everywhere? What?
There was a Mandalorian and a Jedi and some Yoda creature, and they were fighting all the zombies. It was crazy.
Like, I hope
like,
that doesn't
we would have
happen.
heard about that.
Jesus Christ, I hope that doesn't happen.
It's gonna happen. I can almost guarantee you.
No.
Part of me is excited. Still, I have to admit it. Part of me is excited. But also, I understand every one of the worries where, like, I just want to see people's stories wrapped up in their own stories.
The thing is, I was thinking about this while I was watching the episode. And I was like, okay. I was thinking about how much I enjoyed Loki. And how much I even enjoyed some of the Marvel shows that I didn't care as much about. Like, I love WandaVision and Moon Knight and Loki, but I still enjoyed Hawkeye. I still enjoyed Miss Marvel. I didn't enjoy Secret Invasion, but I still enjoyed Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I was like, even though I didn't like everything about it, and even the Marvel movies that really missed the mark, I would still go back and rewatch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and still laugh. And still have a decent time. Still have a fun time. But I will never go back and watch Rise of Skywalker of my own volition.
Oh my God. Never.
I don't want to do that. It just makes me angry just thinking about it. And it really illustrates the difference for me between the two franchises, the two big dominant Disney franchises, right? Hey.
I don't know if we'll leave that in, but my girlfriend just got home.
So funny.
She was going to say hi.
She just walked in and then backed out very slowly.
She just said, sorry, you probably didn't hear that.
I did not. Anyway, what was I saying?
I don't even remember. I do want to mention how good Dave Filoni is in contextualizing a lot of the characters and their motivation, especially Anakin, like episode 4 and 5. I think, no, just 5, where we saw him training Ahsoka again. And there was a lot of the use of the volume that I didn't love. Everything was a little smoky, but I still loved that entire episode so much.
I thought it was a great episode. And I remember my point now. But what I was going to say is, like, even though I really liked a lot of parts of this show. Like, Star Wars just elicits different kinds of emotions in me, and I think a lot of other people, judging by the way fans respond to Star Wars online. But, you know, since it doesn't have as many jokes or lighthearted moments, Star Wars feels very serious, even though it's a show about space wizards. Movies and shows about space wizards, it feels very serious, you know? Marvel feels lighthearted and quippy, and, oh, we made a mistake, we're sorry, whatever, we'll do better next time, or we won't. But Star Wars feels It just feels like if we mess up, that's it. We're gonna go away for a long time until people forget about it or they don't. And I don't know, it's just a very different feeling watching this back to back with Loki. I think you're right. I think it did a disservice to it because the whole time I was thinking, I was like, I'm not having as much fun as I was 5 minutes ago.
Well, I mean, I think the comparison came up on Twitter a lot as this show is coming out, but it is a different type of fun. Whereas if you watch Star Wars, you can watch a, not necessarily a kid's show, but like a kid-like adventure in The Mandalorian, or you can watch Ahsoka, which is like it felt like an episode of Rebels, but live action, or you can watch Andor, which is just objectively better. And I hate to say that because I had a lot of fun with Ahsoka and Mandalorian, but Andor is, like we were saying earlier with Loki, but it's a cut above. If you haven't seen Andor, which I'm pretty sure you haven't.
Not yet. I will.
You gotta watch it.
It's on the list, but like I said, it takes a really specific mood for me to watch Star Wars.
Well, Andor
even though I love
it's coming out in probably a few years. Maybe then you'll get the drive to watch it.
Yes.
If we're still podcasting, we'll have an episode about it.
Definitely. Anyway, yeah. I think that's all I have to say. Oh, go ahead.
I have one more note because I have to get it out there that the episode titles were amazing. So was the music, but I just remember the episode title for the finale, which was The Jedi,
the Witch, and the Warlock. The
What
Warlord,
a title.
That's what it was. I loved it. That was my first thought too. I saw it and I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm excited. And then I didn't love everything that happened, but it was a great episode title.
Thrawn's great. His music's great. All the music's great. But other than that, I can't think of too much else to say.
His eyes were like glowy. It was weird.
Oh, it was fantastic. The red eyes.
Yeah. The red eyes on the blue guy. Really disconcerting. Yeah. I don't have anything else that I want to talk about except keep on reading, Max. Keep on reading.
I gotta keep on reading. And I'll probably talk about the Spider-Man video game next week. And then I'll mention Spider-Man 2 the week after, because that's when it comes out. And oh my God, Sasha, I'm so excited. But with that, this has been a painful time slip podcast.
Not a glorious purpose podcast.
Oh, that would have been better.